Hello, everyone. Welcome to Arise with Grace, the podcast that celebrates and empowers the stories of strong, resilient women of faith who have moved from surviving to thriving and from pain to promise. I am your host, Phoenix Grace. I've been through both literal and figurative fires in my life. In the midst of my wilderness season, God told me, "You have walked through fire and survived. Now you will rise from the ashes and thrive." So I did. Now I have made it my mission to help empower women to be who they were created to be and live life in full bloom: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health. All right. Good morning, everyone. My guest today is Deneen Elaine. Deneen has worked in the field of community economic development for over 30 years. She is a former politician, community organizer, and artist originally from Canada. Loss and violence forced a dramatic change, and she finally arrived with a young child as an immigrant in Santa Fe, New Mexico. She now passionately works with others to help them see the precious value they possess. Welcome, Deneen. I am so grateful to have you on the show today.
I'm thrilled to be here. This is exciting.
Glad to have you. So, first off, can you tell me a little bit about your backstory, your origin story? Every superhero or heroine has a backstory. Have you always been, this community organizer, this justice oriented person, this artist? Tell me a little bit about your early life.
There's a lot of things that I don't remember, but it's interesting because I was born into a family that was blended culturally, both Irish and Ukrainian, and so there was always when we talk about identity, it was right away, I always felt very divided because having a mother that was Irish and a father that was Ukrainian, then two
Hmm.
radically very different cultures, though both very rich. I would always struggle with, my identity. Like, am I more Irish? Am I more Ukrainian? Or am I Canadian? Because I was born in Canada. Canada. Oh my gosh.
I'm Canadian too.
I think I've been in New Mexico too long. But even just that, and it's not a bad thing, but when we live in the world, and as children, always kind of struggling who we are, what we are, and then as well being a middle child, I always felt like I had this what I used to refer to as the middle child syndrome. So I always felt like I was in
Okay.
the shadows, in between. I wasn't the oldest, I wasn't the youngest, and didn't kind of always felt like I was lost, and I didn't really fit in somewhere. And I did used
Okay.
to jokingly say, middle child syndrome, and even when it came to a relationship with Jesus, for example, there wasn't one because I
Okay.
grew up in this kind of, where it was around religion. And, there was the
Mhm.
Orthodox, and then on the Irish side, there was fights around whether somebody was Protestant or Catholic. And it really formed a lot of very strong beliefs in my mind because, especially when I looked at the Irish history, and there was a lot of drinking and things that went on in that side of the family. um, but I always had to question things because it was like, well, you're both saying that you believe in God, but you're killing each other, and there's nothing but hatred. And
Mm.
so that was something that really, stuck with me. I thought, I don't want anything to do with any kind of church or religion per se, because all I
Mhm.
could see and hear was hatred. And so that formed a lot of very early beliefs. And I think certain age groups, we were raised in that you don't question things, But because I
Right.
had this kind of mixed stuff going on, it was very confusing for me. And so I would even have this divided loyalty where it's like, well, if I did something that was more Ukrainian, for example, I spoke Ukrainian fluently as a child, but my mom didn't understand the language. So then I wouldn't speak that because then I was being disloyal to my mom, or vice versa. So I always felt
Mm.
very, very split around
Caught
that.
middle of foods. Foods, really, like, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
very
So
divided.
it
So how
created,
did you cope with that? Like,
I think I just kind of bounced back and forth, and but there was always this feeling of divided loyalty. That if I did something that on the Ukrainian side my mom didn't understand, so then I would flip. I was constantly flip flopping, and not really understanding who I was as Deneen, and not really
mhm,
having a voice around that, and because you certainly don't ask questions, and you don't
mhm,
question authority around religion, for example. I just saw it as hatred, and but I also didn't ask. And so that was something that really was formed early in my mind, and I thought I want nothing to do with that.
mhm,
Yet there was a lot of dysfunction within. My dad was an alcoholic and drank. Wasn't violent or anything, but it certainly had repercussions. And
mhm,
other than there would be fights, and he was also a gambler, and he would often take off. I mean, I understand today why. It was like a shame
mhm.
and thing. And he has not drank for over 35 years now. But growing up
Wow.
in that
Oh.
environment, it was because I was also daddy's girl. And, so I
Mhm.
tended to go more on the Ukrainian side. But when these things were happening, I would hide in my closet. And I actually had a Bible that was
Mm.
like a comic book. And that was my little
Okay.
sanctuary. Even though I didn't want anything
Oh.
to do with religion, I would sit in my closet. So, the ultimate prayer closet when I didn't even realize it, right?
Real prayer
And
closet. Yeah.
yeah, because that was my safe place to be. And
Mhm.
I would have these feelings of that I had done something wrong when my dad would take off, or I would blame.
Mm.
And as a child, I
Right.
just didn't understand what was going on, but I took it personally. And
Right.
I
You
started to
internalized it.
I
Yeah.
very much internalized that it's like when my dad goes away, it's because I did something wrong. And so it started to put this perfectionism in me, um, that I had to behave perfectly. I had to do everything perfectly at school. I had to,
Mhm.
all. And I mean, I know today that that was all lies, but they were lies that I held, and beliefs that formed very early, that if I don't appear correctly or behave correctly, that dad will take off. And it formed,
Mm.
you know,
That's a
the,
lot of pressure for a little kid to have
yes,
that, right?
exactly, exactly. And
Yeah.
there was no way to talk about these things. I mean, you didn't talk about that. It was, I remember my Irish grandmother saying to me, you don't air your dirty laundry. You don't put your dirty
Okay.
laundry out there. It was all very,
Right.
and some of that was with the
So
Irish,
was it like a mask that you put this mask of performance, of perfectionism, the
absolutely.
outer rather than the internal, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then sexual abuse came into my life when as a child with my
Mm,
grandfather on the Irish side, and which
okay.
really created more of this. I ended up with this bad girl, good girl. There was no outlet to speak about that, and then also told that if I speak about it, I will destroy the family. And so it was like this. I became more performance oriented and external because that was something
Mhm.
you hide these things, and you start to hide anything that is
And you
going
stuffed
on.
it down inside.
Stuff it down, and there's no way to. I mean, it started to exhibit itself, um, in my, especially my teen years, where the
Okay.
rebellion started to come out and ended up, my schoolwork, everything. But then I would get into big trouble. And there was a couple people in my life that had asked me even if something had happened, but I had this, this false thing put over my mouth that don't say anything, you will destroy the family. And so even when I was asked, I lied about it and I ignored it. But then, I learned very early to not exhibit anything that I was feeling. And I
Show no
also,
pain, this mask,
right,
blank.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Or if I'm going to cry, I would go in the closet. Or if I would, no
Hide
one would
away. Yeah.
see, because it, and would learn to put those masks on, and those masks of performance. And it really framed even a lot around relationships with men. I started to see
Mm.
myself that, oh, am I only a body? Am I, especially you start developing, and there was no talk about even, menstruation, like that was a dirty word, you don't. So it was like my
Mhm.
body became dirty. And the one thing I have said for years, and I look at it a little differently, is because I was a dancer, it was also an escape for me, where I could go and
Okay.
dance and I could perform and I could feel my body without the shame or anything like that. But it was on stage. And but as soon
Right.
the moment I
So
wasn't
it
dancing,
wasn't real. It wasn't like your authentic, real inner self, right?
exactly, it was an escape. It was an escape because
Yeah.
it was beautiful and I could be out there and I would be getting the applause. And that continued. I danced until I was in my 30s and even toured.
Okay.
And so it was something that dance became really a big escape for me. An
What kind
escape.
of dance did you do?
I did a variety of Ukrainian. I also
Okay.
taught Ukrainian, but I ballet and then competed in ballroom as well. And so it was really a lot about performance. And I also
Mhm.
learned how to control my body. And so I was very, very controlled, would show no vulnerability. If I showed
Oh, wow.
vulnerability, it would be on stage because it was a
Right.
performance of a piece.
Right. So you could feel safe enough to let the feelings out because it wasn't really you, it was a role, right? Is that
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly, exactly. And so, and it's interesting because those things can actually have turned into good in some cases, but it's
Mhm.
still, I became where I didn't know how to be vulnerable or express emotion or feel safe enough to
Mm.
feel that. There was no trust. I had no trust with anybody.
Mhm.
And then I ended up
Mhm.
becoming a teen parent at the age of
Okay.
17. And, that created quite the stir because my family as well, it was, very much performance based, right? We were big in the
Mhm.
community, stellar in the church, at least on the Ukrainian side. And it was all about
Mhm.
awards and, so you get recognition. And it was always
Right. Well, you
a
got
religion.
recognition, but not maybe not
Yeah,
the way your family would have. Yeah.
exactly, because then all of a sudden, what was going on was, wait a second, like now we're airing dirty laundry because it's visible. Pregnancy is visible. It's not something
Mhm.
that can be hidden because there was so much stuff that went on behind closed doors. And so then I became the black sheep of the family, right? It's that bad girl, good girl thing. And
Okay.
then when my daughter, I think, well, she was, still a baby, and I ended up being raped and
Oh.
became pregnant again, which then it was like, okay, that solidified that I was the rebel in the family. I was the one that, was the bad one. And just solidified it a lot of beliefs about myself that I hid.
They
And so
thought you're a bad. when you got raped?
Yes, yes.
Did they know that you were raped? Did
No,
your family know?
no,
Oh,
because again, it was one of those things that, well, I must have caused that. I must have done something, because look at what else I've done. And I even caused grandpa to do that. I had internalized all of those
so it just
things.
kind of compounded layer upon layer upon layer.
Absolutely.
Evidence to yourself that you're this, yeah, how you thought of
Yes.
yourself.
Right,
Wow.
right. And I remember, it's interesting because, when you're introducing me talking about politics, and which, I mean, that's a whole other conversation. Um, but it almost became a natural thing for me to do around performance. Because I remember
Okay.
when I had both of my daughters and they were very young, and I was driving, I heard on the radio a politician that I won't name
Mhm.
saying something about teen parents and how awful they were. And I felt myself wanting to fight. No, I didn't. He didn't know me. I didn't know him. It was over the radio. And there was something that switched within me. I thought, I'm not going to be a victim of anybody. I'm not going to be a victim of a man. And it's me against the world. And this switch that happened within me where I went, I'm going to show you, I'm going to show everybody that I'm not what you think I am. No, he didn't tell me that. A lot of people did not call me a slut or anything like that, but I believed that. And when that had become such a solid, solid belief, then it
It
was
was
like
a
I could,
label you put on yourself, right?
yes,
Yeah.
and that scarlet letter. And so I would hide so much because I didn't want people to see that part of me. And even though they
Mm.
may not have even seen me that way, in my mind, I thought everybody saw me that way, that I was the failure, I was the black sheep, the one that had all this talent and intelligence, and look what
Yeah.
she did, blah, 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 right? And so then I tried to flip the script on my own. I tried to fix
Okay.
it to become, I'm going to show you. It was like I became that I
Mhm.
woman, hear me roar, don't get in my way. And really, it was so fake. It was really so fake. I mean, I recognize that today. At the time, I didn't, because it was also something that was celebrated. You're a strong woman.
Mhm.
You can get up,
Right.
put your
Right.
big girl pants on, and look at you
Yeah.
go. Look at you, overcomer.
Yeah.
So then I was getting
Me do
validation.
do do.
Exactly. But
Getting the
now,
doo doo.
I wasn't
Yeah.
healed. I wasn't healed. I was living a lie. And you see it all over the place today. It's that Me Too movement. It's like, look at you go. Get that
Mhm.
guy. Do, do, do,
I
do,
can do it all on my own. I don't
very
need help, don't need support. Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. And it was really, I was very, very sick, actually. Now, I didn't think I was. I thought I was doing great
Mhm.
because people were validating me as well. I was
Mhm.
getting that
Mhm.
recognition, the same as the celebration on stage, right? The applause. Look at
So this
that.
recognition, how far did
Hmm.
it go? Like, what did your performance lead to? What were the fruit of it, or so to speak?
It, that continued, even where I started to show some vulnerability is when I met my husband. And
Okay.
now, again, I was pretty hard. I wanted nothing to do with men. I was
Mhm.
the rigid. It was like, I'm never getting married. I want nothing to do, the
Mhm.
whole
You set up
spiel.
that wall, that
Yes.
barrier.
Oh yeah. I even wore the black stilettos, the suit, this persona I had put on
Right.
that, don't approach me, don't touch me. I was cold, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, Even though I would cry myself to sleep at night, because I knew
Mm.
it was a persona, but I didn't know
Right.
how else to do. I didn't have alternatives. And he was the one that really broke me down because he chased me. He, he he chased me, and we used to laugh even when he asked me to marry him. He said it. He used to say, 2 hours before you even said yes. I know I did wait because it was shocking. It was like, wait a second, what's going on here? Like, no, 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 you're getting in here. That no, no, we
Sit
can't allow.
back.
Needless to
Yeah.
say, we got married, and he really helped me to understand intimacy. And when I talk
Okay.
that, I'm not talking sexual even.
Right.
He
Right.
showed me very
Connection.
early, yes, that I did not have to always have be on to please him, to,
Yeah.
perform for him.
Mhm.
He would hold my hair when I was throwing up. He would hold me when these memories would come up.
Oh.
So he became my rock. But I still had that super independent, superwoman. I can do
Mhm.
it all. And we ended up having
Yeah.
two daughters together. So we had four children
Okay.
altogether.
Oh wow. Yeah.
And, I thought I was doing great. I thought I was fantastic. I'm building this career. I'm getting into community development. I used to always read, Martin Luther King, and I looked to these different, like Gandhi, looked to all these different figures
Me
that were
too. So
doing,
true. Yeah. All the
yeah,
social reformers, right?
right.
I bet
And
another
uh,
world is
yes,
possible. Yeah.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
And, I recognize today that a lot of that drive to be a voice for the voiceless was
Mhm.
because my voice had been taken away.
Right.
And so, I recognize that today. At the time, I didn't. I thought I was doing good. I was doing all this good work.
Mhm.
And, throughout
Work.
the
Work.
years,
It was work.
yes,
Performance.
and
Work. Yeah.
yes, and I
Yeah.
performed well. I
Mhm.
was getting recognition. I was doing media. I was doing all the things that you're supposed to do. You
All
know,
the
I
things. Yeah.
I can have it all, and I believe that.
Mhm.
Uh, Not
You've come
recognizing.
a long way, baby.
Exactly, exactly, and I was the walking billboard for that,
Yeah.
because people would even go, "Look, you were a teen mom, but look at what you're doing now, and
Yeah.
you're on the media and blah blah." Well, that fed my ego,
Mhm.
so I never had to touch any of the broken stuff because look at me, I'm doing
Mhm.
great. I even got a
Yeah.
medal from the Queen of England for what I was doing.
Wow.
And
Wow.
so it was all like, wow, this is look at me.
So
And
you
but
built it up and built it up and built it up,
exactly.
and
And
then what happened?
then my husband suddenly passed away. And that was in
Oh.
2012. And because he was my rock, had become my safe place where
Mhm.
when I would be out doing all this work, 60 to set, and honestly, he was more of a parent to our daughters even, because I was so disconnected,
Mhm.
emotionally.
You were
And
disconnected to yourself even,
yes,
right?
yeah,
Let
yeah,
alone to anyone else.
yeah. And I didn't
Yeah.
even I didn't
Fragmented, divided. Yeah.
absolutely, and I didn't recognize it. I didn't see it. I thought my world was, wow, look at this,
Mhm.
because everybody was telling me that. Look what you've done. Oh, wow. Was God in the equation? No. Sometimes I would do the what I call the twice a year Christian, go at
Mhm.
Christmas and Easter because that's what you're supposed to do. I did
Mhm.
everything what you're supposed to do according to
Mhm.
the book.
So then
And,
everything all of a sudden it ended. Your
right.
husband passed away suddenly. Then what? Like what?
I lost my mind. I absolutely lost my mind. There is, because I was so controlled, everything was supposed to go according to plan. And, in my mind, I was even, looked at differently because I'm a married woman. I'm not like this, floozy
The teen
that used
mom
to run
anymore
around.
and yeah.
And now all of a sudden that was gone. That protection, or in my mind,
Mhm.
that protection of being married and having him and taking care of everything and him being my rock was not there.
Mhm.
And I didn't know what to do. I did not know what to do. And in the meantime, one of my daughters, had fallen into drug abuse and was in prison.
Mm.
And my husband and I had raised her oldest son for a period of about 4 years. And then we took in her second son at the age of 6 months. And at the time my husband passed, he was only 18 months old.
Oh,
And
wow.
so, and then I didn't know what to do. I lost sight of everything because I couldn't see. It's like, what do you do when, till death do you part? Because I followed that. I followed that.
Mhm.
You're supposed to.
Mhm.
I had a script to follow, that
It wasn't
performance.
supposed to be that early.
And it's
The
like,
death,
well,
you know.
yeah, but it's like, now what? Like, what happens? What? Because I did that, but now what? I didn't have a
Mhm.
script to follow. I didn't have something that I
Mhm.
could go, hey, this is how you get from A to B, C to D.
Right.
There was nothing because I was so performance oriented and just following the script that I had in my mind.
Mhm. Mhm.
So that became an incredibly dark period for me. Um, and
Mhm.
I still, I still have, my moments, but for it's about 2 to 3 years, what ended up happening, and I connected with somebody over this grief support group, and
Okay.
and and again, I see today it was my ignorance of who God really is,
Mhm.
and this belief that I had, because I'd also studied Buddhism, I'd studied all the different religions because wanted to know, right?
Right.
And
Right. You
that,
were searching for something or
yes,
knowledge
even,
of.
even kind of Wicca and all of these different
Yeah.
things.
Been there,
And
done that. Me too. Yeah.
yeah, not
Yeah.
really truly understanding um, really anything. I was completely ignorant. And so when I met this person who called himself a reverend, um, in my ignorant mind, I believe that God had answered a prayer for me, and he had started to say things that he was prophetic and he was a prophet of God,
Mhm. Mhm.
and so I'm like, I didn't know any different. In my mind, somebody that was prophetic or a prophet would is speaking for God and is telling you what to do. So in my twisted,
Right.
vulnerable mind at that time, and my complete ignorance, it was, I have to follow what he's saying because I don't have a script to know what to do here.
So you're
And
still looking for something to do, to do, to do. Yeah.
exactly, exactly, to fill what, because I had no indication whatsoever. And,
Mhm.
it ended up being very, very destructive, um, because of listening to these things. Um, and where I started to really believe, because at first I was because I was already cynical anyway, um,
Mhm. Mhm.
and had a very cynical nature. And so when he started, we started to relate on certain things, the community development, the social development, and so I thought, wow, like he's really intelligent and we can talk and even
Mhm.
music, but a clincher for me was when he started to talk about things that only I knew about my husband. And I went, how would he
Right.
know that? How would he know that?
Yeah.
And I thought, well, it's got to be God. I mean, that was my,
Mhm.
God
He had
is.
special revelation that it was, yeah.
Yes. And even said, he's saying this. And so I'm like, I have to follow this. And then I also didn't know scripture very well, a little bit here or there,
Right.
from my
Yeah.
twice a year
It
going.
sounded good. It tickled your ears, right? It tickled your ears.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
Yeah.
so I was like in my broken state going, I need that rock again. But I was looking in the
Mhm.
wrong place. Today I see it.
Mhm.
At the moment I didn't.
Outside yourself, outside. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And because I certainly had no personal relationship with Jesus Christ at all. I mean, that
Mhm.
was somebody even saying that to me would be like, yeah, whatever,
So
because
how
I was
did
very
this
cynical.
all sorry, how did this all, like, how did it culminate? What happened with this
Well, what
whole
ended up
reverend thing?
happening? in listening to a lot of his advice, but as well on the flip side, because my daughter was involved in certain things around gangs, there were some already gang issues that were coming against me. And my
Mhm.
grandson's father was the head of one of these gangs. And because the government had taken the child and put him in, I had full custody. There was all this other stuff that was going on at the same time. And so
Mhm.
anything that the Reverend was saying to me lined up. It was like, oh,
Mhm.
this is a way out. God's showing me a way out.
Mhm.
And what ended up happening is the police actually ended up putting me into a shelter.
Oh,
I had
wow.
about 15 minutes to throw things into a couple suitcases,
Mhm.
and into shelters I went. And we moved from shelter to shelter to shelter and ultimately down into the United States. And, you know, dealing with the FBI and RCMP and ICE and a lot of
Oh,
it,
wow.
it's when I really go through these boxes of things that I go, wow, that all really happened.
Yeah.
And what was compounding, that was already a lot of grief because I had to leave everything I knew. But
Mhm.
there was this confusion. It was like, this is not happening.
Mhm.
Like my husband's just passed away. I've got this child. I got a daughter in prison. Like, this is not this nice little package that,
Not what you planned for.
not at all, not at all. And then,
Yeah.
even walking away career wise and all the possessions over the years and everything. It
Mhm.
was like gone.
Mhm.
I had two suitcases.
Mhm.
And it, then having this reverend as well, speaking into my ear. And I thought, he's going to show me, he's going to help me. And in some ways, he did. I mean, I have to be truthful about that. In some
Mhm.
ways, he did. But then there was a lot of really, really dark spirituality that was going on
Mhm.
as well. You know, uh, to this, not so much now, but the scripture, touch not my touch not my anointed and do my prophets no harm.
Mhm.
And so that was always being thrown on me whenever I started to question or started to go, wait a minute, something's not right here. And I didn't really know, but then that was hammered, and I'm believing that, okay, God's speaking through him. I got to listen to everything he's saying.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I was even money, and make a long story short, ended up, to a point where in one of the shelters, I just gave up. I gave up because I was like, this doesn't make sense. Like, everything he's saying to me, and it was like I was dealing with two people with him all the
Mhm.
time. And I'm like, and then calling me a Jezebel, and there's a lot of this dark spirituality.
Oh.
And
Spiritual abuse, it sounds like to me.
very, very much
Yeah.
so, which I didn't know. I just,
Right.
because
No, you wouldn't, right?
I had no idea.
Yeah.
And but the little bit I did know, I'm going, this doesn't seem right. This doesn't. But
Mhm.
then I'd lost my husband, no longer had my home or my possessions or career,
Mhm.
had this child, I'm in this shelter, and I literally just, I broke down. And I went, there's
Yeah.
no reason for me to live. I'd gotten to that, and this was over a period of time too. There was so much that went on that I went, that there's no reason for me to live. Everybody hates me. I've done this, because, and then everything that even as a child all started to come up. It's like my
Mhm.
brain, how when a computer misfires and everything goes like this? That's
Yeah.
kind of what was happening with my mind. It was total
Wow.
confusion.
Oh,
And it
yeah.
was terrifying because
Chaos and confusion.
I
Yeah.
got gangs after me, but then I've got this, now I'm a Jezebel, and oh, now I put my husband in hell, and which was another thing,
Oh,
you know,
that
and
he told you. Wow.
yes, and let alone, trying to even comprehend what was going on. And I went like,
Mhm.
how, this doesn't make sense, you know, like, where did everybody go? Where? I'm here on my own.
So you got to this breaking point,
Yeah,
and
exactly, exactly. And so I went. This was it was too much, and because I'd also been trained not to speak about things,
mhm,
or express myself, uh, and internalizing everything, it was like I saw no way out except suicide. That it became
oh,
my way out. And I remember
mhm,
saying to the shelter worker, because in shelters you're not allowed to have like sharp objects and things.
mhm,
And so I asked for a disposable razor, and I, you know, got it because I was so good at performing. Nobody saw how traumatized I was really was because I had that
mhm,
beautiful mask on.
mhm, mhm.
And Deneen's obedient. She listens to the shelter rules. She follows the rules. Blah 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 blah.
We
But
can
it didn't.
trust her. She can, yeah.
Yes, and because I was very good at
A
it,
good
right?
girl again, right? A good
Yes, and
girl.
it was like
Yeah.
you in politics, whatever, the good girl, all that stuff. And so when I remember sitting in the room, and we were had a private room, so it was just myself and my grandson, and he'd fallen asleep. He was still in diapers, and he'd fallen asleep on the bed, and I kept looking at him. I'm going, but I got to take care of him, but I can't. I don't.
Mhm,
There's nothing in me to do anything. And so I broke apart that razor because that I thought somebody will take care of him. He's going to be okay. And I was
mhm.
convincing myself. And I
Yeah,
remember,
yeah,
and why I cut the shape of a cross, I don't really know. In that time I have no idea. But it was like, I mean, looking back, I can sit and go, it's like maybe there's something within us that does right away call out because we are
yeah,
created by him, right? Now, at the time, I did
yeah.
not know that, but I took this razor blade and initially I just cut myself. I cut a cross into my thigh,
Right,
and I
right.
remember watching the blood, and it was like I had this moment of putting the pain on my leg was taking away the pain from me, but it didn't really work.
Mm, mhm.
I remember crying out and saying, "Are you real? Are you really there?" You know, I like I don't understand because I had all this
Yeah,
other weird spirituality. I'm like, this isn't real. Like, what's happening? And I'm like, help me. That's all I said. Help me. I still get so emotional about this because it's so
yeah.
incredibly beautiful. And I heard so clearly, drop the blade, daughter. And I was like,
Oh.
and then in my mind,
Oh.
I'm like, okay, I've really lost it now. Like,
Wow.
who just said that? But it wasn't like my dad's voice, but it was
Yeah,
like being referred to as, and it was like, what the heck? And then, and I wish, I still have yet to ever be able to get the words to fully describe, but his presence
yeah.
surrounded me. And it was like this
Wow.
bright, bright, incredible light that just filled the room. And I remember breathing, but I wasn't breathing air. I was breathing
Yeah.
love. It was,
Oh.
it's like I never wanted to leave that presence.
Oh.
And to this day, whenever I'm struggling, I remember that presence. It's like, wow, wow. And, I'm just like, if that's only a little taste of what is ahead of us,
Right?
wow, wow, right?
So what, like, what, so you felt this presence, and like, what did you do? Like, what, how,
Well, I remember I slept that night, and
yeah,
because I felt protected.
yeah.
And it's like I knew it was going to be okay, but I didn't know where to even start. And
Wow.
I started by just picking up a Bible,
Okay.
and I started reading. I started reading, and I started talking to him because
Yeah.
I felt his presence. It's like there was this immediate. Now, did everything happen right away? No, not at all.
Yeah.
I had to walk through a lot more things like immigration and, you know, getting all these things. And I often refer to, everybody knows who Paul is, who wrote the majority of the New
Mhm.
Testament.
Mhm.
And his experience when he was Saul, right? And
Okay. Yeah.
killing Christians. And I mean, I killed Christians in my mind and heart. I know that.
Okay. The cynical, the skeptic, the yeah.
Yes, yes, and thought everybody's a bunch of hypocrites, right? And I truly believe that.
Mhm.
And
And that's what you
so
saw, like, from your past, right?
yes, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
The
And so
religion.
right, and so I always think about Saul on the road to Damascus, and when he met Jesus, he became Paul. And for me,
Mm.
it was really on the road to Santa Fe,
Mm.
where
So
yes,
good.
my name is still Deneen, but it's like when I met him, everything changed. Everything changed
Oh,
because it's like, who are you? What are
yeah.
you? I wanted to know. And so it was like digging into the word and reading and started to talk to him and putting scriptures on the wall of every shelter. And, that I still had many moments where it's like, having to go through the grief, having to walk
Mhm.
through
Mhm.
when all the old memories started to surface. But
To
what,
process it
yes,
and actually deal with it, instead of running away or pushing it away or
exactly,
hiding or having that
exactly,
facade, right?
exactly. And learning to just sit in my feelings
Yeah.
and feel, and everything from anger to depression to, grief is its own beast. It is
Yeah.
it's a beast. It's hard to walk through. And the anxiety that sometimes would happen, and the fear
Mhm.
that would come up because I
Mhm.
was so accustomed to being in control, and then all of a sudden
Right.
I had no control. I was in a new country,
Right?
didn't know
Yeah.
anybody, didn't know, and it's like, what do I do today? Where to show me where to go? Show me,
Right.
and it's been an
So you
amazing
said,
journey.
"Show me where to go." So were you asking God that?
Yes,
Show me where to go?
yes,
Yeah.
because it's like I didn't
Beautiful.
know. I didn't have my Rolodex. I didn't have all my
Yeah.
former contacts where, I was in the community and I
Yeah.
knew if there was a problem who I was the queen of fix it. I
Yeah.
could call on
Yeah.
anybody.
Yeah.
I didn't have anybody. It was like I had him though. So I had
Mhm.
everything.
Yeah.
And,
That's right. You had everything because you had him.
and
Oh,
it's
it's
definitely
beautiful.
been a big, big process of, the anxiety attacks
Yeah.
that would come, which are really scary. Anxiety attacks are very, very scary. But
Yeah.
to sit in it and just go, Lord, help me. To be able
Yeah.
to say, I don't know, or help me, and to
Yeah.
receive, it's like, wow, wow, you're real.
Mhm.
you know, when, when we
Do you
talk
find
about
that that helps you open to others too? Being able to
absolutely,
allow God in and release that facade and be
yes,
vulnerable and surrendered helps you connect to other people as well?
absolutely. Absolutely. And I find it really fascinating because in my former life, for lack of other words,
Mhm.
highly skilled, lots of, lots of talent,
Mhm.
even to be able to do
Mhm.
numerous things. And I find it interesting that when I used to sit on boards of shelters, for example,
Mhm.
are the
Mhm.
do gooder things, right, that I did.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
I ended up on the flip side where I needed
Right?
those services. It has
Yeah.
actually made it more powerful for me because I'm coming from a deeper place of understanding
Yeah.
and being able to, the gift to just listen. I didn't
Mm.
used to listen to people. It'd be
Yeah.
like, okay, well, here, this is what you got to do. Bang, 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 bang.
Yeah. Yeah.
And because of everything that happened, I mean, I wouldn't wish any of it on anybody. It has not been easy. It has been incredibly challenging and incredibly painful. Yet,
Yeah.
some of the pain I was feeling was pain that I wouldn't allow myself to feel years ago.
Right.
And
Yeah.
learning how to just sit in it and not act
Yeah.
on it, or to feel that anger, to go, you know what, that was not cool, what happened,
No, it
and
wasn't.
to
Right.
express it in a safe kind of
Express
way
it. Yeah. Let your
without
voice
doing it.
out. Don't, you know? So
It's very powerful.
I want to hear more about how your life is now. But first, if you think back to where you were, the girl you were, the teenager you were, the woman, after your husband died, all your pain, and if you could speak to yourself or someone going through similar things, what would you tell them? What would you tell them?
I really think that what I would say is hold on, because what's ahead of you that you can't see is far greater than what you're experiencing right now. And because it holds true, um,
Mhm.
for my life, for sure. And I think for
Yeah.
anybody that is struggling with any circumstance right now, we're even told we're not immune from suffering.
Right.
And we're not God, contrary to what I used to believe that I could do everything. Um, I mean, he's shown me, number one, how to trust again. And
Mhm.
there's so much. It's hard for me to even recognize the woman I was. I mean,
Right.
it's the same person, but I'm not. It's because I never, when I was holding that razor blade, for example, um, or many other times I was thinking I give up. I don't want to. I don't want to.
Mhm.
This hurts. I don't want to be here. Whatever.
Mhm.
All the stuff we cry out
Yeah.
in the circumstance. Now, did I know then what I know now? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not, because I
Right.
couldn't see what he was going to do. And it's a really a faith walk. It's like when Peter is like going to step on that water. He's told, "Come, step out on the
Yeah.
water."
Step out of the boat.
And then we get into our own mind, and down he goes, right? And I
Yeah.
think we all are subjected that way because we cannot see ahead, or we can't see
Mm.
that. Our worldly minds will go, well, you can't walk on water.
We don't
And
have
so,
that expanded view that God has, right?
exactly, exactly. So, I love to talk with people and just listen. Number one, listen to the story, because a lot of
Yeah.
times we don't listen. We just
That's
don't
right.
listen. We are
We
quick
have
to
our
get
own
into.
agendas. Yeah.
Exactly. And the gift of, even when someone is grieving, or, the loss of a loved one, none of us are immune to that.
Mhm.
And, we will always go to that. And I remember being even angry at people, going, well, how come you can't see what I need? Right. And I didn't even know,
Mhm.
there's that standard saying that people will say, well, if you need anything, just ask. And what I
Right.
wanted to ask was, well, bring me my husband back, or bring me this back, or
Oh,
bring,
yeah. So,
right?
yeah. Part of from what I hear from your earlier story, even if you were able to ask, would you have even known what you needed?
No,
Like to ask,
no,
right?
no,
So
I didn't
what
know
okay,
how to ask.
so going back, okay. So now that you know what you know from what you've experienced,
Mm.
first of all, what kind of help would you have needed? What, like, if someone,
I think, especially at different times, is for somebody to just sit and listen, not
okay,
give me advice, not
yeah,
anything, but just be there. Just be
yeah,
there. Um, to just listen. Because a
hmm,
lot of times we want to jump in and give advice. We all want to just try
yeah,
and
want to
take
fix it,
we want to take that pain
yeah,
away from somebody. And not that that's bad, and
hmm,
sometimes we're able to. but the the gift to just sit and listen and just be there.
Mhm.
Just if somebody needs to
Yeah.
scream and yell, or somebody just needs a hug. Sometimes that's all I needed was a
Be
hug
there.
and say, "Can
Yeah.
I get a hug?" Sometimes that's all it's needed,
Mhm.
right? And
Mhm.
um, I think that's really for me a big thing to number one learn how to feel,
Yeah.
or not just learn how to feel, but just feel and it not be
Yeah.
taken away. Because if
It's
somebody
okay to
tries
feel.
to take, yes, because
Yeah.
I was taught not to,
Mhm.
and had put this wall around me, and so I didn't know how to deal with it. I couldn't even
Mhm.
express what I was feeling. So
And
a
to be able
gift,
to ask for help too, to be able to
yes,
not think you have to do it all on your own, right?
that's still a work in progress.
Yeah,
You know, a
yeah.
lot of times.
So, Deneen,
Hmm.
I was thinking, so is there a Bible verse that you like relate to or that speaks to you?
Yes, and it was one that I always had um, right by my bed in all the shelters. I had it on a little note
Mhm.
card, and I would tape it every
Mhm.
shelter I would move to. So it was the last thing I would see before I would go to bed, and first thing I would
Mhm.
see when I would wake up in the morning. And
Mhm.
I'm never good at getting the exact words, so I've got it here, and it's
That's
Romans 8:28.
okay.
And
Okay.
and we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose. And
Oh,
this
so
verse
good.
would be something that when I couldn't see, and did I
Yeah.
really, my love for God just continually grows. It just the
Mhm.
more intimate I am with Him, and
Yeah.
the more the relationship becomes stronger. Um, I mean, my love is so pale in comparison, but this always resonated because it was like this message of that current circumstances is not the end. There will be something
Yeah.
good that comes out
That's
of this,
right.
and I couldn't see the good,
So
but it was that
so
belief
now
that
you
good
have
will
though,
come.
right?
Yes, absolutely,
So tell
absolutely.
me, so okay, that's a great way. Tell me a little bit like what are you doing now? What are you doing with your life now? Is it the life that you imagined, the the
Not
stilettos
at
and
all.
the power suits and the so tell me a
No,
little bit
I tend
about
to run
that.
around in bare feet a lot. you know?
I have bare feet right now. I'm wearing
It's like I've
sweatpants. You couldn't
become
see
like
them.
a little bit of a bohemian, which is has
Okay.
always been a part of me anyway. That art,
Yeah.
I'm letting that artistic side come out a
Yeah.
whole lot more, and not, conforming to what other people expect from me. But even doing a lot of things that, yes, I'm still working on, let's say maybe organizational development, but I have
Right.
a much different approach than I used to.
Yeah.
And then even, I am a certified women's life coach now. So
Okay.
there's some
Yeah.
individual things. Developed a program called Return to the Garden. Um,
Nice.
and that was a
Life
name that
in Bloom is what I do too. So
exactly,
returning to garden.
exactly.
We'll need to talk more about that, just you and me off
Right,
camera sometime.
and I've created a couple little small businesses where it's like natural skincare, which was something I was
Okay.
always really enjoyed, but
Yeah.
it was always something that I never really pursued either. And because
Wow.
I've always loved gardening and getting in, and it's interesting. Some of my beliefs that I had have actually been confirmed that they were not that far off from what God was always saying. So that's been a pleasant surprise. But because I always did believe that God created everything, and so
Yeah.
He's always showing me. Even He has given us everything that we need. And so, I mean, you can see my little tower garden in the back here. I grow
Yeah.
and
Oh,
do a bunch of,
yeah.
yeah. So it's kind of that.
I've wanted to get one of those actually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And actually, my grandson, we went to Jesus Revolution, and he had even said to
Yes,
me,
me too.
it was kind of funny. He goes, "So you're kind of like one of those Jesus hippies." You know? We went,
You and me both, sister.
I went, you know what? He's right. He's right. And it's like
Yeah.
I'm living a life that I kind of always craved and always kind of wanted. I still miss my husband to this day. I do.
Oh, of course.
Um,
Yeah.
and even there's still some things that are needing to be resolved. And
Yeah.
my relationship with my parents is much different. It's long
Yeah.
distance. It's a little more freer, and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's really I see my mom in a whole different light. I see my dad in a whole
Yeah.
different light. Um, some things that are still, being worked on that need to be healed.
Yeah.
But the beautiful thing is that the Lord's constantly showing me ways to do that, and to not, number one, hold myself to what I did, but not
Yeah.
hold others as well, like that.
Right. You show them some grace as well, right?
Because I know how much, like,
Yeah.
when I think the Ten Commandments, I've broken every one of them, and some of them many times over.
Oh.
And that legalism and things that were
Yeah.
part of some of the stuff that I endured, and the beating and things like that. I see it differently today. I see it
Uh.
differently today, and it's beautiful. What he does. I do a lot of artwork, and what I do is actually
Okay.
pestanka, which is a Ukrainian egg, where it's an ancient tradition that my
Okay.
Ukrainian grandmother taught me from the age of 4. But again, the Lord's always showing
Yeah.
me different things to do, and if I can indulge for a moment, I want to show you
Yes.
one
Yes. Yes.
one
Yes.
thing.
Please.
Uh, Last year, when the war broke out in Ukraine, and actually
Mhm.
everything I've done, even dance, everything I have turned over to God. So even when I'm dancing today, still, I'm
Yeah.
involved with a hula worship group. And so even my
Oh,
dance
so
is
cool.
dedicated to the Lord, and, doing some praise
Oh.
worship, praise dance and things. And my art is, again, it's also everything I do is dedicated to him, and it's become richer as a result. But when the war broke out, when I make these eggs now, or the pesinka, it's a time of prayer. And so because it means that the word pesinka comes from the word pesta, which means to write. So you're writing a story. In my case, when I'm making them, I'm writing a prayer, and colors mean different things.
Mm.
All the symbols mean different things. And I started
Mhm.
to pray when the war broke out, and some of the horrors that we're seeing, and started making some. And I don't exactly know exactly how it all came together, but it was really Holy Spirit that led me. Where I actually created 12 different eggs that were all the same pattern, but slightly different, and started to intentionally
Mm.
break them because the Lord was showing me something. And He told
Okay.
me to create this lion. So I don't know if you can see it. It is
Oh,
actually
yes. Yes.
made from lots of
Wow. I can see it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So all broken eggs that were designed and made into the Lion of Judah. And as I
Mm.
was making it, he was showing me and telling me, and I've got a number of other pieces I'm working on right
Mhm.
now, but he was showing me
So
and
what was
telling
he
me
showing and telling you? Yeah.
that he creates something beautiful out of our broken pieces.
Yes, he
And
does.
this Lion of Judah was all prayers. It was all prayers, and these broken lives that are happening as a result of the refugees and the war, and in all things that are going on, that this brokenness. But he takes
Mhm.
those broken pieces and creates something whole, something new,
Yeah.
and something beautiful out of that brokenness.
Better than we would have ever put together, right?
Exactly. I never would have thought to even do something like that, but it was when I was praying, he started to tell me about this brokenness, and how he hears our prayers and he takes those. and the brokenness that we carry and he creates. And I was like, okay. And just even as I was in this moment, I started to just put and I was like, okay, it's the Lion of Judah. Okay. you know?
So
And
he does that
so,
with each of us too, right? Each
exactly.
person. He takes those broken pieces and
Yes,
puts it together in other ways and to make a beautiful whole. Wow,
absolutely. Absolutely.
Deneen.
And
Oh,
so,
I've
I'm always going, wow, Lord. Every day I'm always going, wow, wow. And, so again, it's like that to
wow.
anybody that may be experiencing whatever pain it is right now,
Yeah,
um, that there is hope, that there is something
yeah,
past the brokenness, that something beautiful could
yeah,
come. And, it's like that Romans 8:28, like good, right? Something will be
yeah.
turned to good for his purposes. And,
And hope
my
is a
life,
person.
right, right.
Hope is
And like,
Jesus, right?
right. And I look at my life purpose has changed. It's completely changed.
Yeah,
And it's not something I ever would have thought of. Number one, I never thought I would be going to church all the time, or I'd be doing worship, and or like
yeah.
Jesus is King. It still blows me away. And it's been a number of
Right?
years now, but I still go, is this me? Like, wow, like, what have you done? Like,
It's
I'm
more
so
beautiful probably
proud.
than you ever would have imagined, right?
Exactly,
Oh,
exactly. And he's
Deneen, I have just
constant.
enjoyed this
Yeah.
time with you. I want, though, to give you an opportunity. How can people get in touch with you? How can they learn more about you and what you do?
Well, certainly, I have one of my websites, Denisha Natural Beauty, and it does connect
Mhm.
into a couple others. I'm just finishing off a couple other things. I'm always a little bit behind.
Okay.
But there is a way to be able to message me through that.
Mhm.
But as
Mhm.
well, there is, just even by email or on Facebook
Mhm.
as well, just Deneen
Okay.
Elaine. Um, you know, I'm
Okay.
I'm very, very open to being contacted.
So I'll make a card for that to put with these
Absolutely.
videos. So
Ab-
Denisha, first of all, what is Denisha? What is that?
that was a name that I was given by my Ukrainian grandparents at birth when I was a preemie
Mhm.
and was not supposed to live, and having all this mixed religion, mixed cultures and stuff. I imagine it was kind of a funny scene where there was the Orthodox priest and the Anglican and all this mixture, and the Orthodox priest had incense and was putting oil on me, and I was being baptized because nobody thought I was supposed to live. I still think it must
Oh,
have been pretty funny in the hospital. But as a result, I ended up with two names, Deneen Elaine
okay.
and
Yeah.
Denisha Olenka, which is the Ukrainian version of it.
Okay.
And when I was naming one of the businesses that the Lord has given me, and I was trying to, come up with a name. And I'm like, nothing
Yeah.
really was working. And he woke me up in the middle of the night and he said, you call it Denisha. And I'm like, now, only my grandparents ever called me that. Nobody else would
Mhm.
ever call me that.
Mhm.
And when I looked it up and saw that the Hebrew meaning of Denisha was gift of God, I went, wow. And I went, thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. And
So
that's
the
kind of
gift
where,
of God. So that's your a new name, an old name but a new name,
right,
and he
all
put you together the
everything we
same but
knew,
different,
right,
completely different whole from the
right.
broken pieces put together by a whole. So
Yes.
beautiful. Oh,
Yeah.
Deneen,
It
I
still
am
blows
just
my mind.
yeah, I'm just so blessed that you joined me today and we could hear your story and I just give so much love and blessings to you and like all glory to God. And so just thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you.
thank, thank you. This was fun.
And yes, it
I
was.
love that you've
And
got blossoms. It's like, God connected us for a reason. So,
absolutely, absolutely. So I'm going to take the recording off and we'll connect in a minute here, okay?
Wonderful.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for watching this episode of Arise with Grace Stories of Women Moving from Pain to Promise. I want you to know that you too can move from pain to promise, from broken to whole. And I also want to let you know to be sure to like and subscribe this broadcast. And if you go to www.lifeinbloomforyou.com, you can um, enter your information and subscribe to our mailing list and get a free gift, the Love Like Jesus bundle. And thank you for connecting, and see you the next episode.